Hey, everybody. We'll get started in just a moment, just waiting for everybody to be admitted from the waiting room. And the little counter seems to have stopped. So, hi, my name is Billy, and I am the founder and organizer of Bookstore Romance Day. And I just wanted to welcome you all to this afternoon's panel focusing on romance novels with characters who are in or have a love for the STEM fields. And Josie is going to be your host, so I am going to turn it over to her. Thank you all again so much for being here.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. My name is Josie Melendez, and I am a published poet from Puerto Rico, currently living in New York. I'm also a proud bookseller at Books Are Magic here in Brooklyn, and I'm happy to moderating our panel. It's just science, technology, engineering, and math. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to our sponsors and publishers for making Bookstore Romance Day possible. Thank you to Harlequin, Harlequin Trade, Avon, Epic Reads, Source Books, Bloom Books, St. Martin's Press, and Bramble. Today, I'm joined by authors Chandra Blumberg, Christina Lee, Lisa Lynn, Cora Lee, and Opal Way. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to say a little bit about each of our authors, and then we're going to get into the questions. So Chandra Blumberg writes funny, heartwarming love stories about characters that feel real and relatable. Born and raised in Michigan, Chandra moved to the Chicago area after majoring in English at Michigan State University. When she's not writing, she's enjoying lifting heavy barbells, let's go, making a mess at the kitchen while baking alongside her 4 kids and traveling with her family. Christina Lee is the award-winning author of children's books Clues to the Universe, which was a Washington Post Summer Book Club pick, and Ruby Lost and Found, which was an NPR and New York Public Library Best Book of the Year and recognized for the Asian Pacific American Librarians Award for Best Children's Literature. She is also the author of the YA title True Love and Other Impossible Odds, as well as a forthcoming adult literary debut, The Manor of Dreams, which I started reading and it's really good. Lisa has been an avid romance reader and fan since she read her first Nora Roberts novel at the age of 13 after wandering the aisles of her local bookstore. Lisa loves that romance has the power to inspire and believes that happily ever afters are for everyone. Lisa writes light contemporary romantic comedies with a liberal dash of snark and banter, which we all love to see. She enjoys delving into the complexity of Asian and immigrant family experiences and celebrates female friendships in her trademark dry, witty style. As an Asian American author writing Own Voices Asian American Stories, Lisa hopes that her books will show the diversity of the Asian American experience and the importance of every reader being able to see themselves represented on the page. Cora Lee is a national best-selling author of Regency romance. We love to see you here adding that extra spice to the section. She went on a 12-year expedition through the Black Forest jungle as a high school math teacher before publishing Save the Last Dance for Me. The first book in the Maitland Maiden series, she then followed it up with 8 other novels and novellas ranging from sweet and traditional to spicy and suspenseful. When she's not walking Rodden Row at the fashionable hour or attending the entertainments of the season, you might find her participating in Regency fiction writers events, wading through her towering TBR pile, or eagerly awaiting the next Marvel movie release. Are we excited for Fantastic Four? And Oboe writes warm, witty contemporary romance featuring emotionally complex multicultural characters and their rambunctious families. Her recent screwball rom-com, Wildlife, was called breathtaking by the New York Times Book Review. She also wrote about romance novels for The Toast and was a 2010 fiction fellow for the New York Foundation for the Arts. Her nonfiction has also appeared in the New York Times and The Walrus. She and her family are recent transplants to Toronto. Yes. So that is our lovely set of panelists. I am so happy to be able to speak with you today. And I guess to get us started, why romance? What was it about the genre that enticed you, aka what was your meet cute? And we can start with Christina.
I feel like I've always loved romance. I kind of love how comforting it is to read a romance book and how each author has their own unique take. It's like there are certain conventions to the story, generally that there's going to be a happy ending, but still each time it's like embarking on a whole exciting new adventure. And so, yeah, no, I always have like a great fondness for the romance genre.
How about you, Lisa?
Um, like my bio said, I was 13. I was walking through the bookstore. I was walking through the romance section, and I'm like, who is this Nora Roberts chick who's taking up half the shelf space? Um, and I just picked one up, and it happened to be one of her McGregor books from her old category silhouette days. And I just found the idea of this 90-year-old Scottish, like American, like matchmaking meddling grandfather just hilarious. And I read it. It was funny. Like it had all these elements of all these other different things. It wasn't just, about the two characters falling in love. There was so much more about it. And I've been a fan ever since. So, and I think that's what I really love about the genre. It can be whatever you make it. Like if you want, if you like science fiction, there's romantasy, there's like historicals, there's historical romance. If you like paranormal, the paranormal romance, like whatever it is, like we're everywhere. And that's what I love about it.
How about you, Chandra?
Yeah, so for me, I think it started way early when I was a kid, even like with movies. I was always rooting for the romance subplot. Like I would make one up if there wasn't one in the movie, and if there wasn't one at all and there was no way, I kind of wasn't interested. But yeah, romance for me, in terms of reading, really started, I feel like when I was a teen, and I would sort of just randomly go to the library and just pull books off the shelves. I didn't have any rhyme or reason, and I wish now, like I would have remembered what authors. I read a lot of Regency romance. I do know I read Nora Roberts, but basically, once I figured out what a romance novel looked like, those were the ones I gravitated toward. And yeah, I agree. I love that there's so many different subgenres in romance. Like we're here on this STEM romance panel, but yeah, there's like whatever you love to read, there's a romance for that. So I love that about the genre.
And for you, Opal?
So, like Chandra, I was one of those kids who, I would read books and I would just wait for the moment where characters would get to. I was a shipper from the very start. I was one of those people who is like mashing faces together and going, now kiss. Um, but I also, I had like a few like romance awakenings basically. Like when I was also a teen, my parents like bought a garage sale box of Harlequins. And that was like, and I just went through them and I was like, where are there more? Why can't I read more of them? And then, life happens, you start reading other things. And eventually I came back to it also like in my 30s. And I was like, this is great. Why haven't I been doing this all along? And I don't even remember half of the things that I read, but like basically I just wanted more of the love, more of these very comforting books, more of the romance.
And for you, Cora, especially coming from the Regency romance world?
Yeah, I came to romance as an adult. I come from a family of not readers, and they're mostly very proud not readers, which breaks my heart a little bit every time they say something like that. But it turns out both of my grandmothers were big, heavy readers, and one of them was a romance reader, and I never knew about it. She absolutely adored Danielle Steele, but the family would not talk about it. I have some chronic health conditions, and when I was in my 30s, things got pretty dire for a while. Not life-threatening, but I was not very functional for a good long while, and I needed some comfort. And I was a history nerd, hence the historical romance, and started with historical fiction and stumbled upon some that had the romance subplot and the happy ending. And I was like, wow, that's really great. And then I discovered that all romances had happy endings. And I thought, you know what? That's exactly what I need right now. I don't care how they get there. I mean, you care how they get there, but knowing that it's going to work out in the end was really comforting to me when I was having so much of my own issues, at least things were working out on paper for somebody else. And it was a really great way to pass the time without burning a lot of energy, without um, neglecting things that had to be done. I could still do the things, I could still shower, I could still take my meds, I could still go to the doctor, but I also had time and energy to read a book or listen to a book. So that got me through that stretch, and then I was hooked. I couldn't give it up. So here I am.
No, and I relate to that so much because I know that whenever I go to a doctor's appointment, I always bring a romance novel with me.
Yep, me too. Or five.
It's the best comfort. But I also wanted to ask you guys, what comes first in the process for you? Do you focus first on those emotional beats, the formula, essentially the backbone of the story, or did the tropes of the genre draw you in first? So we can start with Chandra.
So for me, it's definitely the emotional beats, because I think that for me, it's always sort of the characters that influence the plot. I always start with characters first. I get sort of, not they don't come to me fully formed, but I have a good idea of my characters first, and sort of, I guess the trickiest thing for me is their wound, their reason for not finding love or not staying in love. And that I sort of have to discover along the way. But yeah, the tropes sort of come about as I'm thinking about, what ways can I put them into sort of uncomfortable, maybe awkward situations that will sort of push them out of their comfort zone, push them toward discovering themselves, discovering what they need to do to feel like they can accept the love, and sort of find this other person. So yeah, the tropes I think for me come second, but they're definitely the fun, a really fun part of it, because then you're like, ooh, you might put them in this situation and then realize later what trope it is, and then you can really lean into that. So a little bit of both.
And for you, Lisa.
Josie, it's kind of sweet that you think I have a process at all. Um, I am very much a pantser. But I just kind of start like, well, the book, my book with the STEM characters is the third book in the series, and Bethany appeared in the first book, and she was just one of those characters who are like, yeah, you're getting a book. I understood. So it just became a matter of finding what kind of story would fit her. But I am just very much a pantser. I just have kind of some of a vague idea of who the characters are or and what they want. And maybe I have some ideas of some fun scenes or something that I think would fit, but it's very much okay, we're gonna open the document, type chapter one, and see where this goes. And at some point, it will involve me texting my friend, I don't know what to do, tell me what to do.
We love you for that. Do you ever find yourself writing scenes out of order?
Well, yes. And then present Lisa hates past Lisa with the heat of a Nova. Because that has happened, and I've had to Frankenstein and stitch it back together and make it all make sense. So yes, that has happened. It was not fun. I don't recommend it, but it seems to be how my brain works. So I got to go with it.
It's been working out so far, and your process is your process. As long as it gets done, that's what matters.
Exactly.
How about you, Christina?
I feel like my process is very similar to Chandra's in that I am very character centric. And so I always follow sort of the arc of my character first and let that guide me. And then later on, as I'm writing it and like they're kind of developing on the page or in my head, I find that they tend to like naturally fall into tropes. Like, sometimes I can like sense when they're, for example, like heading into the third act breakup and like I feel so much dread in my heart, but I'm like, okay, now we're at that part. And so I'm very much a character first, and then we'll like let them dictate the plot.
How about you, Cora?
I like to think that I'm more organized than I am. I used to be a super duper outliner where I would have my outline would be effectively a first draft. And it was characters and tropes and plot and all of it at the same time. And as things have gone on, my process has been influenced a little bit by my teaching style, if that makes any sense at all, even though I taught high schoolers, and this is completely different from that. I kind of get a sense of who the characters are first and where I think this book ought to go. Of the Good, the Bad, and the Scandalous, my big STEM book, had a specific mandate because it was a group project. It was part of a multi-author series, and so we were all writing historical characters that were doppelgangers of comic book heroes. So I had a place to start with that one, and then it was like, okay, and there's some suspense in there because it's a comic book thing, so there has to be some big world saving thing. And then it just kind of, and then I get a pretty decent outline going, but then once I start writing, I feel like if something goes in a different direction, then something goes in a different direction. That's how it was in my classroom all the time, right? Stuff happens. You have a plan. This is what we plan to do for the day. And then a fire alarm goes off, or some kid really, really cannot solve for X. And then it turns out half the class can't do the thing that you think they could do. So, so I just kind of go with whatever shows up in my head first and take it from there.
And for you, Opal?
So Wildlife, which is probably the book where my latest book is like loosely based on this old movie called Bringing Up Baby. And in it, there's like a paleontologist who meets with this dizzy madcap heiress. And so I had thought to myself, I wanted to write something based on an old movie. And in Wildlife, I turned the paleontologist into a grad student who is studying bones, and and she's also she's in this MD PhD program. And the thing was, I was like, I don't know how I can make these characters fit into this very frankly weird late 1930s plot, because I want them to be like fully fleshed out. And I usually do actually start from character too. But I also wanted it to like follow some of these frankly strange lines, like in the movie, there's like a pet leopard, and there's like running around and screaming. There's like, people singing to the leopard. There is a scene where, there's people end up in jail, and I was like, how do I make these characters be real people? So I wasn't even thinking so much about tropes. And when, people started talking to me later about the book, they'd say, oh, and you have this trope and this trope. And I'm like, that is news to me. Yay, because then I can, put up one of those cute little graphics. But also, I had no idea. So yeah, that is my process is also not much of a process. It's just me throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what works.
I love that you're bringing up Baby, because I read that about Wildlife, but I also saw that you're a big fan of His Girl Friday. So I was wondering if you could talk to us about what makes reimagining and reinventing the classics and screwballs so enticing.
I think that romance readers do love something familiar. Like, it's so comforting. And, there's something so wonderful about taking something that you love and then also putting other things that you love in it. That I like, one of the things that somebody asked me later is like, how did you do this? And I was like, first of all, I made everybody Asian. So, that was super important to me. I brought it into the 2000s. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be different people in this. And we can make her the scientist, and he can be kind of like the dizzy heiress type person. And so it's wonderful to be able to expressed your love for something, for like a great story, I love like Beauty and the Beast retellings and Cinderella stories too, because it's so familiar and it's so wonderful. And it's also so exhilarating to see what different people do with it. And so it's super fun to see what you can do with these things.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned paleontology, actually, Chandra, you have a wonderful blend of cooking and baking in your books, which is a big part of your life. Then you mix in topics like paleontology and marine biology. How did these come to be in your storytelling, and when did that light bulb go off that this is what you wanted your novels to be?
Well, so for me, I think they're just things that I've always been interested in. I guess I'm a nerd. And so I've always loved watching, documentaries and reading books. Like I grew up reading Jurassic Park. And I forced my family to watch Shark Week on more occasions than one. And it's just like it's really interesting to me, just the science aspects of it, which I don't have a science background at all. I majored in English and not good with numbers. So especially in writing Second Tides the Charm, it was really important to me to get that right. And it was like a lot of checking and double checking and a ton of research. I do feel comfortable with research. But yeah, the science elements, I'm like, okay, I'm not a scientist by any means, but I need this to be accurate. I really wanted someone to be able to pick it up and feel like, I love books where you get a taste of the character's job, if it's a unique job, and not sort of to be too heavy-handed with it, because I really wanted the romance to come to the forefront. But yeah, I just love these topics. I think that sharks are really cool. I think that dinosaurs are really cool. I mean, I love, seeing the fossils in the museum. And so, particularly for Second Tides, The Charm, I didn't sort of, in my debut novel, Digging Up Love, we had a paleontologist and then a baker. So I sort of had that safe space of the baker where I'm not a baker, but I know a lot about baking. I've done a lot. But with Second Tides, The Charm, they're both marine biologists. And there were several times when I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Because there is so much research and there was sort of nowhere to hide. But it was really important to me that we had that heroine in STEM. I really wanted her to be a marine biologist. And I was originally thinking maybe, I would do a hero who wasn't. And then I'm like, no, I love that they have this shared passion, sort of this thing that pulls them together. But then also in their case, it sort of pushes them apart. Because it's this very demanding field where the research might take them in different directions. So that became a really pivotal plot point for them both to be marine biologists. So they needed to be, and it was a lot of research, but in the end it was worth it. And I got more time to sort of watch shark documentaries, which is something I already love. So
Research is never procrastination. It's always worth it. But I also love that you included baking, because baking is a science. Like with cooking, you can improvise and somehow you can always fix it. But with baking, if you mess something up, like I think that's what I loved about lessons in chemistry as well, which has brought STEM to the forefront. So I love seeing you mix both of those things. But also, what advice would you give to writers who want to write about something in particular that they're not familiar with personally? Like, say, for example, you want to make a love interest a veterinarian, but you don't know anything about vets, or you don't have any friends in the field.
is this for me or for
Yeah,
anyone?
we can start with you.
Okay, so yeah, for me, I just realized to not be shy about first of all, you want to do your research firsthand, do what you can online. I like to go to the source, like use scientific journals. I read books by marine biologists. And I sort of do that in tandem with writing because I don't want to sort of get bogged down in the research and not get words on the page, because in the end, that's the goal, is to write a story. And so I sort of leave room in the plot for that research. But also, I think it's really important to get an expert to weigh in. So that's hard for me because I'm nervous to reach out to people. But I realize, you know what? I'm going to be way more nervous if it ends up on the shelf and I didn't do due diligence. So I was lucky enough when I reached out to someone at my university about paleontology. She was super happy to help. The same thing with Second Ties the Charm. There's actually an organization called MISS, Minorities in Shark Sciences, and I had been following them for a long time on social media. And I reached out and said, is there anyone your members that can help, and I found a marine biologist, a shark scientist who was able to help me. So I think just realizing that people want to help, they think it's super cool that they can be in a book, and they can always say no. So yeah, I would just say, I'll dive into your research, but also don't forget about the book, because that's the goal, is to get the story.
Thank you. How about you, Christina?
In terms of the STEM element of my book, so my book is about it's college freshman, she's a math major, and she invents this algorithm that pairs people up with their statistically like perfect match on campus. And so the thing about my book is that it is actually pretty similarly based to something that happened in real life. I was a freshman at Stanford when the Stanford Marriage Pact was happening, and someone had invented, as a part of one of their like finals projects or something for an econ class that they were taking. I was an econ, or am an econ major at the time, and they had published this like survey, and one day we like all got this email that said, do you want to find your perfect match on campus? Obviously, yes, for romance and gossip reasons. And so we participated in it, and that just kind of inspired the idea in me of like, okay, what if someone did that? And then I thought of like a sapphic twist to it. Like, what if someone invents it, gets, paired up to like what she thinks is the perfect guy, but then realizes there's a lot more to love and like her own perceptions of love than she realizes. So luckily for me, it was close enough to real life where it didn't have to take a ton of imagination, but it did have to take a fair amount of research, because unlike the main character in my book, I'm not at all proficient in math, and just like there were a lot of things around like game theory and economics and like matching principles that I had to really research. So yeah, I think definitely tried to do my due diligence in researching, but any mathematical errors are definitely my own and not due to the algorithm.
How about you, Lisa? Any advice for anyone that wants to write a story that they're not entirely familiar with the STEM profession that they want to write about?
Well, Bethany Meets Her Match is has two main characters who are both ER physicians, so that's where the STEM element comes in. And I was lucky enough. I know Carrie Baldwin. She's a romantic suspense author and who's actually a real life like doctor. So I asked her if we could get on a Zoom, and I just basically, like everyone else already said, kind of do my due diligence. I kind of just ran some of my ideas, and she was like, "Yeah, that works. No, that's not how this works." And what I appreciated was that she gave me like an insider perspective of what it would be actually be like to work in the hospital. Like, don't piss off the nurses. Like things like July is when the interns start, so that's kind of like a crazy time of year, like and things like that. And what I also did was I watched a lot of medical YouTube videos, like actual physicians talking about um it's amazing what's out there if you look for it. So they will talk about things, and a lot of them will do like ER doctor rates, medical scenes from movies, and they were like, "Yeah, no, that's not how this works. No, we don't actually use those paddles all the time. We barely ever, rarely use those things." So and actually, I spent back when I was in college, I actually spent a summer volunteering at a hospital. So I kind of saw a little bit what it was like, how things were run a little bit. So I kind of used that a little bit, but mostly it was just Google is your friend. I made up some drugs, y'all, like some medications. So like don't be afraid to make some shit up if you have to, but just but just make sure. Like, but when I got copy edits, like my copy editor like tried to look this up, couldn't find it. Did you make this up? Yes, I made that drug name up.
You're like, do it for the
So
plot.
yes, yes, I made up a medication.
Okay, it works.
Yeah, and that's the thing about romance. Like there, like I think, like what Chandra has said, don't be afraid to reach out. Whatever it is, there is someone in romance who knows about it. you want to write an astrophysicist, there is an astrophysicist romance writer out there, or someone who can hook you up with an astrophysicist. Like, it, just don't be afraid to reach out. It's out there. Just do your due diligence. And I think most readers just, at least for me, like they just want a good faith attempt. Like they're not going to expect you to get every single detail, but as long as it's shown that you actually tried to do your research and try to get it right, I think most people will be pretty forgiving and will let some stuff go. But that could just be me.
Absolutely. And for you, Opal?
I was really lucky to have Cindy Lee, who writes romance as Lucy Koo. She is a cancer researcher, and she read through Wildlife, and she pointed out some. And this is the thing. I mean, you can research and you can learn about the job, but it's sometimes like little things, like what the actual lab looks like that you don't really know. Like I imagine a spacious white space with glistening beakers everywhere. And then she sent me a picture of what her room looks like. And it was like a small room and it was crammed and there were these files everywhere. And like it was eye-opening. And so she went through and she made some really great suggestions, even said like, why is she in this program? She should be in this program. I was like, ooh, that is a very good point. And that really helped. In my case too, I mean, I worked for as a journalist for a company that I'm not going to name, but it rhymes with PEMD. And I interviewed a lot of physicians for that job. And so in a way, for me, it was like approaching what I used to do, but from a different angle, a more personal angle. And I mean, you know, as I also write as Ruby Lane, and my first series was about like doctors practicing in Portland, Oregon. So it is sort of familiar territory for me in a way, even though I am not personally a doctor. So basically, what I'm saying is sometimes you just should do something that's a little bit familiar. And if it is very unfamiliar, yeah, I think that readers are forgiving about certain things too. And also, you know, it was so funny when Lisa mentioned making up medication. I'm like, yeah, you definitely have to make up a medication. Otherwise, you like, you know, if you use a real one and you say something unflattering about it, somebody's going to get mad. Somebody with more money than you and lawyers. So good job.
And for you, Cora, I actually had a different question. I was wondering, since you focus on historical fiction and Regency romance, oftentimes you have to write about advancements that are commonplace for us, but they might seem entirely new for your characters. How do you navigate like writing about that wonder and rediscovering those elements and those advancements and those challenges?
I'm fortunate that I am a research nerd because there's a ton of research that goes into that. I'm also a member of Regency Fiction Writers, and we have a very active forum and some very knowledgeable people who could at least point me in the right direction for things. And then I got a JSTOR subscription and read a crap ton of journal articles. It was tougher with the good, the bad, and the scandalous. One of the main plot points has to do with neutralizing an acid. And it was like, okay, well, I took chem when I was in college. I know how to neutralize an acid. Like that's a normal thing, right? Everybody's done the baking soda and vinegar volcanoes with some child or when they were a child, right? That's a fairly commonplace thing. But it was very, very new 200 years ago. And it was not well known outside academic circles. And it was like, oh God, what have I gotten myself into? But like I said, I'm a research nerd. And so, yeah, with our Regency Fiction Writers members and JSTOR and Google and knowing a good source from a not so good source, it's just a lot of wading through something that could be helpful, something that's kind of minor, something that's not at all what you were looking for, but it had the keyword in it. It was just a lot of wading through things until I could find the stuff that was useful, till I could find or extrapolate approximately what would have been known. And there was even a point where my editor made a comment about, should you explain what an acid and a base are for people who don't know? And I'm like, do I need to do that? Yeah, well, okay, I can figure out how to do that, because that's not something that all of the characters in the book would have known. So it's a lot, but I love that part. I really do. I get such a kick out of that. And then, going through, in this case, chemistry. I hated chem in college. I absolutely hated chem in college. And so I'm reading these journal articles with equations, with chemical equations and big words. And I'm pulling out my textbooks, and I'm pulling out digital textbooks, and flashing back to 20 years ago when I was an undergrad. And oh, but it was so much fun. It was a good time.
No, I love that. And also brings back, again, you kind of get to experience a wonder over something that's so common. And yet you're like, wow, this is why
Yeah.
people often thought of technology as magic back then.
Right? I can't remember, I don't remember which book it was for, but at one point I was looking up recipes for something, and baking soda and baking powder were not a thing. I thought, well, how do you make a cake without a leavener? And then, of course, went down a rabbit hole. The answer is you have to beat the ever-loving crap out of the eggs most of the time to get a lot of air into them. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So, I mean, historically, cooks should have had big Popeye arms from all the work that they're doing.
I believe it. That's why the baker is so burly and Beauty and the Beast. But I actually wanted to toss in a fun question. I was wondering for you, what makes a sexy STEM profession? Because oftentimes people immediately go to doctors, but again, you all have such a wide variety of professions in your books. So I was wondering what that looks like to you. And we could start with Lisa.
One of my favorite shows is Leverage, and I think one of the creators just nailed it because, like, what people loved about the show is the confidence point, just people being good at what they're doing. Like, that is just really, really attractive. Like, it, no matter what it is, like a chef, like going to town, like chopping up some veggies and like and then making like this amazing beef bourguignon or something that is just as appealing as, you know, a chemist like working out this equation, or a mathematician work figuring out this algorithm. And smart is sexy. So I think it's just being someone being passionate about what they're doing and good at what they're doing. And I think that's what makes it that would make a STEM character appealing. Just someone who loves what they do and are passionate about it and just good at it. It works for me.
No, I love that. What about you, Chandra?
Yeah, that was totally what I was gonna say. I totally agree with Lisa. That I think any profession can be sexy because it's like about the person's passion for it. Again, yeah, their competence, how well they're doing it, how fluent they are in that skill. And I think sort of also seeing them, maybe it's always fun to have those teaching moments in romance, where they're teaching the love interest, or vice versa, something that they're really good at, and being that patient moment, that learning moment, seeing them work through. I love those scenes in romance. Those are some of my favorite ones, to see them work through. So you obviously have a lot of opportunities for that in STEM, but really honestly any profession is going to be sexy if you write it. So yeah, I totally agree with Lisa.
How about you, Christina?
Yeah, no, I agree with both Chandra and Lisa. I feel like I personally am just like not good at STEM subjects, and to like witness someone being so good and so competent and passionate about them, I feel like is so cool and so sexy to me because it's very novel, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could hear you talk all day about this. Like I could hear you talk all day about like this algorithm or about this like it's like new discovery that you made. And so yeah, I think it's like that like new thing that I'm really really drawn to. But yeah, I do agree that any profession really can be sexy.
And actually, to switch it up a bit, Opal, a person's career choice can also say so much about them as a person. When do you feel you found the right one for your protagonist and their love interest?
Um, in a lot of ways, it's about trying to throw a lot of monkey wrenches into the thing. So I like, sometimes I like to write STEM characters because they might be good and really competent at science or figuring things out, but they are not necessarily good at feelings and knowing how to deal with them. Like that's kind of like the stereotype, but at the same time, it's fun to play with these people who should be so smart, but can be so dense about what is in, like, what they are feeling, what is in front of them, and have trouble articulating that, expressing that to their love interest. So there is that element to it. Sometimes also it can just be integral to the plot, like in one of my Ruby Lang books, for instance, I have a neurologist. This is Hard Knocks, and she has a personal history also with like worry about concussion, right? And she decides that she wants to ban hockey, in Portland at least. And so she ends up going up against like an actual hockey player who's trying to save his team. So that becomes it becomes really important that she is invested in this personally and also as her work. And it's really important that he is invested in keeping his job too. So, you know, when you can get these things and get them to come together and just like push them against each other, that's like a really great feeling to be able to marry the job and the conflict and all the emotional stuff.
How about you, Cora? Especially, have you ever actually gone back and changed their profession?
In historicals, I mean, the profession kind of goes with their station in life, right? So you don't have some wealthy Bridgerton type character who's going to be out building stone walls with a mason. That's just not a thing that happened. I mean, maybe it did once, but it's not a thing that happened a lot. So yeah, so it's a dual thing for me. Not only do I have to figure out how they make a living, but what effect does that have on the rest of their lives? Where does that put them in the social hierarchy? Um, I don't think I've ever gone back and changed anybody's. I've made some tweaks, but I haven't like outright changed anybody's profession or station to something completely different. Um, Once I get going, yeah, the plot depends a lot on where they're at. Sometimes what station they are, what their occupation is. And if I mess with that, then I mess with the rest of the plot and I have to go back and fix everything. So I try not to do that too much.
And I also wanted to touch on the clear gender divide in STEM that is also approached a lot in STEMinist novels. There's kind of like a need to balance commenting on this clear divide as well as feeding the fluffy side of the genre. So how do you guys balance that? And we can start with Christina.
Yeah, I feel like one of the notes during my edits was like, okay, you love the explanations of all the like game theory and market design and economics, but like it does need to be kind of fun. And so that's kind of where the banter comes in. Like my main character is a very STEM person, like a mathematician, but her love interest is this girl who like could not care less about that. She was just like, I don't understand what you're saying. You're such a nerd. Like, but what she loves doing is like she loves like actually reading romance novels and like used to be like a ski champion. Like, and so I think I feed it into the banter where it's like hopefully there's like a self-awareness that, there are kind of these like very technical topics, but there could be some levity and like poking fun and being like, oh, okay, you're like getting really into this again, or like working it out that way. But yeah, ultimately I try to have like a lot of knowledge and like respect for the STEM component, but also tried to have a little bit of like dialogue and like fun around it.
How about you, Lisa? Oh, you're muted.
In terms of the gender divide, that was something I actually really thought about and had to deal with in my book because Bethany is an Asian American woman and an ER physician in a very male dominated field, and she straight out says, "I already have these two strikes against me." Right. And again, it goes back to research and me being way too online, and somehow I may have wandered into medical Twitter or somehow, and every so often there would be this thread about a female like a doctor, and even though she has the lab coat, she has this, and like people will still think she's the nurse, or and like the the guy comes in, oh, Dr. Borelli, how are you? But she would get, hey, Megan, like what's up? So it's like those things, and like that was something I was like included in the book too, about like how how she has to that's just something that she has to deal with as part of her job, that people don't take her well, there's just some people who just won't take her seriously no matter what. And then in the end, and this isn't a spoiler, I don't think, but like they go to a medical conference, and then there was like I guess this workshop about that, and she's like, and one, I guess the moderator of that workshop's like, how many of you, even though you have doctor whatever, people still think you're the nurse, and she was like, everyone's hands in that room went up. So you know, so I guess like just it is the reality of it, and just show that she's fighting the good fight. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it is reassuring for a reader. I know that sometimes when I'm reading STEM books, I studied creative writing. So I give them to my friends that are studying medicine because I see what they struggle through, especially as women, and a lot of them are non-binary, and then that automatically is put to test in these spaces. So to be able to see characters that represent that in these books makes people feel seen and like comfortable and that they chose the right path. How about you, Opal?
So I was thinking about this when I was like in college, university. I remember taking a gender studies course, and in it they said that in USSR, the former USSR, there were actually more women doctors than men, and it was seen as a more of a women's profession, and as a result, it wasn't prestigious at that time. I don't know what it's like now. It wasn't prestigious at the time, and it was a lower paid job. And that's fascinating to me, that we have, first of all, that this is also changing right now. I think that there might actually be a slight edge in medicine, at least for women, except that they tend to be in the specialties that are lower paid. There might be more female doctors at this point, but they're maybe like in family medicine or in pediatrics or in not like orthopedics where they're not surgeons necessarily. So we still manage to have these divides, and I think it's just really important to put out there that that women are in these positions, but also to say that, to round out these characters, to make them also like they might be your mentors, people you look up to, but they're also people, and they have failings, and they don't necessarily know what to do with their love lives. And I find that tension really interesting, and I like to write about that. So I guess that's I like to write about it. That's the main thing.
How about you, Chandra?
So for Hope in Second Ties the Charm as a shark scientist, one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book and going into it, I was like I said, I grew up watching Shark Week. I grew up watching documentaries, and you see in general a lot of white men in these shows. But that's not the reality of the profession. There are, women that are doing this there, and minorities, marginalized, members of marginalized communities. And so I wanted to sort of show that that's like the norm, to not have it be sort of a pain point, even though it is in a sense. But I really wanted to focus on the joy of it and just the normalcy of it, and that this is okay, this is reality, because people's experiences differ. Hope sort of has this internalized pressure that she has to go above and beyond, which I think a lot of us have, um, being, a woman in this field. But I also just wanted to portray that, like, yeah, this is cool, this is normal. These are people just doing their jobs. So yeah, I sort of had that push and pull there. And then in terms of the characters, like I said, her pressure on herself to do her best and everything, that's another moment for the love interest, for Adrian to shine through and sort of come through and support her. So I think that that adds to the fluffy element where we see, oh, these things that are hard for you, the love interest can come through and just be that person for you, be there to support you. And so I think that's one way that I balanced it.
And how about you, Cora?
For me, there's the historical element too. And, throughout history, especially in Europe, it's the white dude that always gets the credit, right? The one that always gets the recognition, the one that always gets paid, or the nice posting with the king, or the whatever. But when you dig a little bit deeper, you find that there were women that were also doing the same things, or doing better things, or different things, or whatever. But it was always Caroline Herschel is a good example. She was an astronomer in her own right in the 1780s, but it's her brother William Herschel that everybody knows about. He was also an astronomer and very good at what he did, but a lot of his work uh, built upon what his sister did, and she didn't get credit for it for like 200 years. So that was one of the things that I wanted to build in, and me being a bit of a science nerd in addition to being a history nerd, it was a fun puzzle to try to figure out how I was going to get a really STEM oriented woman into a Regency romance, and make it plausible and believable, and yeah, not preachy and overbearing and that sort of thing. So and I like puzzles. That's one of the reasons why I like to write Regencies, is because I will frequently take a what do you call it, a contemporary situation, and go, okay, but what would happen if that was 200 years ago? So that was a fun puzzle for me to try to figure out how to get. I wanted them to be on equal footing, the two main characters, in some way. Their social stations are different, their economic status is different. I wanted them to have some sort of equal footing, so it wasn't this huge power differential. And so it was really fun to try to figure out how to get her. And it turns out in this case, she was the daughter of a bookstore owner, and read like every single book that they had. And chemistry was the thing that she liked the most. So she was very well read.
And it also reminds me how Mary Shelley, nobody believed she wrote Frankenstein. We thought it was Percy.
She was 19. She started a whole new genre when she was
Yeah.
19. Yeah, and everybody said, no, that was definitely Percy. No. It was,
Yeah, again, she's the mother of science fiction, and everyone's always like,
yeah.
science fiction is a male genre. It's like, no, it's not.
Oh, it started with a 19-year-old chick, kids. Let's get with it
Yeah.
here. Ada Lovelace gets the same thing, working the mother of computer programming. Oh no, she wasn't a real programmer. That wasn't a thing. That didn't come along until later. So yeah, that unfortunately happens a lot.
Actually, we do have a question in the Q&A from Melanie Keating, and they would like to know, is there any other genre you would like to write in the future? And we can start with Opal.
So coming up next year, possibly, you're hearing it here first. I will be writing possibly will be coming out my first book club book, women's fiction. So I'm looking forward to that. And there may be more to come.
Amazing. Christina?
Yeah, I have historically jumped around genres a lot. This is True Love is a contemporary college romance, YA, but next year I have a literary gothic, I think, coming out in March. And so yeah, that's definitely been kind of a change in genre for sure.
How about you, Lisa?
Well, with my first series, I kind of consider them contemporary comps. But when I talk to my editor, she says, I feel like you almost have like you almost because I also talk about, family and on culture and things like that. She's like, I almost feel like you also straddle like women's fiction like a little bit. So I guess that would be something I would lean more towards. Um, I was a history major, so I love historical. So maybe I will try. Maybe that is something I would look into trying as well. See if I have a historical voice.
How about you, Chandra?
So I don't have any plans to switch genres on the moment. I'm really loving romance. But one thing that I really love is novels and verse. There's something that I always really enjoy reading, but then I'm like, I don't have that background. Like I don't have an MFA. I don't know the poetry rules. So I feel like that'd be a whole learning curve, but I have toyed around with the idea that someday I might really love to write a novel in verse.
And for you, Cora?
I don't write fast enough to jump genres, so Regency romance it is for right now. If I had the time and the speed and maybe didn't have to work a day job to pay the bills, I think I would really like to write mysteries. Maybe historical mysteries, maybe contemporary mysteries, but I think I would really enjoy. I like reading mysteries. I like reading thrillers too, although they're slightly separate genres. And I think it'd be a fun puzzle to figure out how the mystery ends in order to write the book. So maybe one of these days.
I mean, cozy romances are gaining a lots of popularity, mixing mystery and romance. Let's go.
Right? Historical cozy romance. Let's do it.
And that's actually the end of the panel. It's been so wonderful speaking with all of you. Actually, is there anything else you guys would like to shout out? Anyone, is there a book you've been reading or another author you've been liking that you'd like to give some love? Amazing.
I would like to shout out Joanna Lowell's A Sure Thing. And it's a Victorian romance, and it's trans, and it has a lady botanist, and it's got Victorian bicycling on the shore. So I think that really should sell it. Victorian bicycling on the shore.
I've been reading and recently loving A Love Like the Sun by Riss Nielsen. It's so good. It's like a childhood friends to lovers, like slow burn romance. So yeah, that's been my favorite summer read so far.
I was just to prepare. I was just going through some of my favorite romances with STEM characters, STEM heroines. So on the top of my list would be About That Night from Julie James with Kyle Rose, the Twitter terrorist, um, who decides to use his hacking and cybersecurity skills for good. And Tessa Dare's A Week to Be Wicked, which may be one of my favorite romances of all time with Minerva. Uh, who is, I guess we would call her today a paleontologist. She studies fossils. Rest in peace, Francine. And I loved Jackie Lau's Professor Next Door, who was on the who David, who is a geology professor. And I love that book because like she's not fooling anyone. Everyone is like, oh, you like that guy, and and she's no, we're just friends, well, whatever. It is so fun and ridiculous. And would be and then the last one would be Courtney Milan's The Countess Conspiracy, Violet, and her work as a botanist and geneticist and things like that. So those are my favorites.
Those are good favorites, Lisa. I second Courtney and Tessa. Those are really excellent. And A Week to Be Wicked is one of my very favorite books ever. That's, yeah. Go read those. Everybody should read those. And anything by Jackie Lau is fabulous. So read her too.
Another one of my interests is like space. So I loved The Astronaut and the Star by Jen Comfort. That's a great one. And then also recently read The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton. The hero in that is going to the moon. So it's a really fun fake dating romance. So yeah, those are two of my favorites, sort of featuring like space astronauts.
Amazing. Again, thank you to our sponsors and publishers for making Bookstore Romance Day possible. Thank you to all of you for being here with us today and for all of your wonderful answers. Thank you to Billy with Bookstore Romance Day for making this possible. And yeah, it was a very good conversation. Everyone that's attending, obviously, get everyone's books.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Hi,
Thank
y'all.
you.
This
This was
is
so much
Billy
fun.
again. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. Thank all of our authors. Thank you to Josie. And thank you to Libro FM. Everyone who registered for this panel or for any of our panels will be entered to win a bundle of audiobook credits from Libro FM. So those will be announced next week. I hope that you have a great Bookstore Romance Day, that you have had a chance or will get a chance to get to your local bookstore and stock up on books, because that's why we're all here, is we love books. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.